and the matchup possibilities that are there, whether it's the Knicks or the Hawks or even the Heat. But I like the Celtics' chances in those matchups more so than I do having to start off in a sixth seed or with this team and the inconsistency and the issues with confidence that we have seen in them to drop far enough down to get into that play-in tournament scenario. I am fearful of that. So I think getting to that 4 or 5 spot is really important for this group.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All of that, more connected basketball, communicating better. I think though at this particular juncture, not chasing wins, that's fine. And if you're not going to do that, you need to manage the minutes of Jason and Jalen. And you can throw Kemba in there as well, because you're always going to be worried about Kemba's minutes, although Danny has talked about how they feel a little more comfortable giving Kemba more minutes. But again, with the injury potential that we saw,
they still have a couple in there. And so he will miss some games.
Yeah. So, finding a way to, again, Jalen and Jason have done an unbelievable job trying to carry this team for the entire season. And again, anything that has happened this year, those guys, they've had their problems, but for the most part have been really, really outstanding. I would try and give those guys as much, not time off, but just trying to, lessen their load a little bit throughout the rest of the year, because look, this team is going absolutely nowhere if they're not healthy. And they're not, then even if they're healthy, in order to beat a team like Milwaukee, who just blew the doors off Philadelphia the other day, in order to beat a Brooklyn team that apparently is not going to have James Harden the rest of the regular season, but is going to, get healthier as the postseason starts, and has, a three-headed monster that nobody really knows what's going to happen with that yet. And of course, Philadelphia. In order to beat those three teams, you're going to need superhuman efforts, probably from Jalen and Jason, okay, with the way the season's gone and what we have for data and how unpredictable this team is. You're going to need both those guys playing their best the most important time of the year. So finding a way to get those guys some rest would be critical for me. Because, again, if you don't have either of those guys playing at 100%, you're not going anywhere. You're going to get absolutely you're going to get smoked. In maybe it's not the first round. Maybe you have a nice fight if you're the 6th seed or the 7th seed, but it still results in a round 1 loss. And if you're playing 4 or 5, again, maybe the matchup's a little bit better, and you're playing an Atlanta team that's very inexperienced, or you're playing a Knicks team that has played really hard this year, but again has a lot of inexperience when it comes to the playoffs. So. Just finding a way, seeding is not going to be a huge thing for this team, I don't think. I'd love to get to 4 or 5, but again, the odds of that are interesting. But finding a way to get your core guys healthy is huge at this point, and it's paramount. And Jalen has this knee tendonitis that he's going to have to manage, not just for this year, but maybe for the rest of his career.
I mean, I wonder if that was affecting him tonight as well.
Yeah, he was scoreless in the first quarter and then had 12 points quickly in the second. I don't know what happened there, but it's one of those things.
Well, and Danny,
Adam, what are you prioritizing?
Well, I'm fearful of for Jaylen Brown. I mean, it's irrelevant, I guess, to the short-term question of the regular season and the playoffs. I'm wondering about Jaylen Brown's knee going forward. We talk all the time about the concern over Kemba Walker's knee, and obviously he's right around 30 years old. Jaylen Brown hasn't even really entered his prime years yet in the NBA, at least based on what his NBA clock could look like. The way Ainge has talked about that knee in past radio interviews really concerns me if this is all of a sudden something that needs to be managed long term. If we're just talking about managing it in the coming weeks, the playoffs this year, whatever, these things happen. If we have to worry about what Jaylen Brown's knee looks like next year, the year after that, from an actual load management standpoint, that's a little, I'm not going to go so far as to call it alarming, but it's absolutely concerning. With respect to, I guess, the short term, I agree with everything that you guys said about playing connected basketball, and obviously that needs to be number one. I sort of feel like that's something that you can't control if you're the coaching staff. Like, you're going to tell all the guys what you expect from them, and they're either going to go out there and they're going to do it, or they're not going to do it. And you hope, obviously, that these guys respond the way they need to. For what you can control, is how you're going to manage minutes. You know, going back to what Evan talked about, managing Jalen, managing Jason, managing Kemba, as you've both talked about, Fournier and what his situation is coming off of the COVID, and all these other, obviously Robert Williams, and when is he going to be back? Is he going to be back? And we believe he is going to be. But that to me is sort of the bigger thing. You're not chasing wins. You're not worried about seeding. Unless it gets to a point where all of a sudden you're losing so much and you really do fall into like the 10 seed, then okay, you need to go out and maybe alter some things, because God forbid you miss the playoffs. And I don't think that's going to happen, but that changes the narrative a little bit.
Speak it, Adam. Let's not let that enter into the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, heaven forbid. But they are so, in your words, they are so Jekyll and Hyde that would anyone be shocked if all of a sudden, like, they dropped 5 in a row?
Yes. You mean, or if they lost in the play-in tournament?
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone would be shocked if they lost in the play-in tournament. I don't think you could be any more or less shocked by a loss in the play-in tournament or a loss in the conference finals. I really don't. I think the happy medium, we talked about this last week. You know, my expectation for this team is a second round loss. And I think that's what most people's expectation for this team should be. And if you fall on, you know, one better or one worse, meaning a first round play-in loss or a loss in the conference finals because they're healthy and they got hot, I don't think either one of those should shock you. The only thing that should really shock you is if they like actually reach the NBA finals. You know, everything else to me is in play for this team, and it's probably a second round loss.
I am not as concerned about Jaylen Brown's knee. He has spoken about it and said he is frustrated, can't believe at 24 years old, this is something that he's got to be thinking about and worrying about. But I do think it's helpful that it's on the radar now at his age. And so he will take good care of it going forward. And as will, you know, the training staff that works with him every step of the way. And hearing from Perk said he dealt with tendonitis throughout his entire career. And as a big man, that puts so much more weight and pressure on those joints. And he was able to play with it, play through it, and play for as long as the league would have him, as we saw. So I am not as concerned about the tendonitis. And then we even saw Jalen has played, this was just his second game in the last 5. He missed one game, the Golden State game, I think it was, due to the knee. And he came back and was gangbusters, put up 37 points. And then he missed the next 2 because of that shoulder bursitis, which is what I think must have been the issue today. Because if it was just the knee, he would have been fresh. And that is something that these injuries and guys missing time, they should be fresh. I mean, this is the good thing about maybe Rob Williams missing some time, is that he will be good to go for the stretch run, you hope, and then into the postseason. I mean, Evan Fournier coming back from COVID, when he does start to get a little bit of a rhythm back, hopefully that is something that will help them. And Tristan Thompson, we've seen, has been a bear since he came back from his COVID bout, and has been a really big piece to the success that they were having. But yes, and then, like I said, to me, that's what makes these last 2 games so frustrating. It felt like they took so many steps forward just to take 2 huge leaps back.
No disrespect to Perk though, but him and Jaylen Brown are 2 level athletes, 2 different level athletes, and the what you need from each guy. Like Perk was not to air Perk out here, but he was a defensive enforcer and a rebounder. Jalen is like entrusted with running the offense for certain.
Well, my question too, and it, like, none of us are capable of answering it. It's a question that Perk would have to answer. But my question in response to what you said, Abby, about, you know, Perk playing through it is, at what degree? Like, what percentage of yourself, Perk, were you? Because that, you know, alters how you feel about the Jalen situation.
I feel like every time we ask him about it, it comes up. He does not seem that concerned. So I will, if that gives you any sort of comfort.
It does.
Well, Burke would not hesitate to tell us if he's upset or concerned about something. So at least we do have that.
It's true.
Then he tells us to carry the hell on.
Exactly.
So as we chat here with Abby Chin, one thing that we did get into on the last show, Abby, which at this point was, I don't know, 8-9 days ago, something like that, was which player in particular, and knowing what you know now, so you're not even assuming full health or anything like that. You are very much surface value, looking at this team, the players, where they sit right here in this very moment, and just projecting ahead. Which one player to you is the biggest X factor for this team's success in the postseason? Evan and I gave our thoughts on it last week, but I'm curious.